In the blink of an eye, the world is torn apart. A new enemy rises from the depths of space, threatening everything humanity has built. But when all seems lost, an unexpected hero emerges, one who might just hold the key to saving us all. The day started like any other. The sun rose over the horizon, casting its warm golden light across the sprawling city below. Traffic hummed along the streets, people rushed to work, and life continued without any hint of the chaos that was about to unfold. That calm was shattered in an instant. Without warning, a deep rumble reverberated through the ground. The sky darkened as if an unseen hand had pulled the clouds together, blotting out the sun. For a split second, there was silence, a heavy, unnatural pause that made the world feel as if it were holding its breath. Then, the sky split open. A massive rift appeared in the heavens, glowing with an eerie purple light. The sound of its creation was a deafening crack, like the earth itself was being torn apart. The rift expanded quickly, rippling through the air and pulling everything toward it. Buildings shook, windows shattered, and the ground beneath the city began to crack open, sending tremors through the streets. People screamed in terror as they ran for cover, but there was nowhere to hide. From the rift, an enormous warship emerged. It was like nothing anyone had ever seen, sleek, metallic, and covered in energy shields that shimmered with an otherworldly glow. The ship descended from the rift, its engines roaring, and it hovered ominously above the city. With each passing second, it grew larger in the sky, casting a shadow over the entire city. Then, the ship fired. A massive energy beam shot down from the warship, hitting the ground with a cataclysmic explosion. The blast destroyed everything in its path, disintegrating entire blocks of the city and sending shockwaves that flattened buildings miles away. The streets buckled, tearing open like the surface of a planet struck by an asteroid. Dust and debris filled the air, and a thick cloud of smoke began to rise as the warship hovered above the destruction, like a predator waiting to strike. Tom Holland's character, G-Saviour, is introduced in the midst of this destruction. As chaos erupts around him, he stands motionless for a moment, watching the devastation unfold. His body is tense, and his mind races as he processes what is happening. His suit, an advanced piece of technology, hums with energy as it comes to life. The moment the first explosion hits, his suit activates, its glowing lines lighting up as a shield materializes around him. But even with his suit's power, he knows he can't stop this alone. The scale of the destruction is beyond anything he's ever faced. The enemies descending from the rift are too powerful, too numerous. His mind flashes back to his training, to the moments when he first donned the G-Saviour armor. He never thought it would come to this, a full-scale invasion. He never thought the Earth would need him this badly. Suddenly, the ground shakes violently beneath his feet. He looks up to see the alien warship charging another blast, ready to strike. His heart pounds in his chest as the fear of what's to come sets in. But he knows he can't hesitate, not now. In a blur of motion, G-Saviour launches himself toward the warship, his suit's thrusters kicking into full gear. His hands crackle with energy as he prepares to face the incoming attack. But as he nears the ship, a second, even more powerful energy pulse is fired, and he's forced to dodge at the last moment. The blast hits the ground with another earth-shaking explosion, sending G-Saviour flying back. His suit absorbs the shock, but the impact is enough to knock the wind out of him. He crashes into a nearby building, its walls crumbling around him. The blast radius has turned the once bustling city into a war zone. As G-Saviour gets back on his feet, trying to regain his composure, his suit's diagnostic screen flickers to life. The energy levels are dangerously low, and the suit's systems are overloaded. He's barely scratched the surface of the alien forces, and the city is already falling apart. But he refuses to back down. He glances up at the warship again. He knows that no matter how powerful his suit is, he can't take on the entire fleet alone. But just as he starts to assess his options, a familiar presence cuts through the chaos. Superman flies into view, his red cape trailing behind him as he rockets through the sky, landing between G-Saviour and the warship. The sheer force of his landing creates a shockwave, knocking debris out of the way. He looks at G-Saviour with a serious expression. "We need to stop this, now," Superman says, his voice steady but filled with urgency. Before G-Saviour can respond, a massive bolt of energy shoots from the ship, targeting Superman directly. With the speed of a bullet, Superman launches into the air, dodging the blast and returning fire with his heat vision. The alien warship seems to absorb the attack, its shields flickering but remaining intact. "Who's behind this?" G-Saviour asks, his eyes scanning the chaos. Superman hovers beside him. "I don't know, but whoever they are, they're not here for diplomacy." The two heroes exchange a look, understanding that they're in this together, but also realizing the magnitude of the fight ahead. They might have just crossed the threshold into an all-out war, and the enemy was far more advanced than they could have imagined. But G-Saviour and Superman know they can't wait for backup. The fate of Earth is in their hands. It's time to unite their strengths and fight back, before the invasion spreads further. As the battle intensifies, unlikely alliances form. G-Saviour, Superman, and Thor must combine their strengths to stand a chance against a force that threatens the entire planet. But even united, their greatest challenge might be their differences. The city's skyline was a charred ruin, the once bustling streets now lifeless and torn apart. The air was thick with smoke and the acrid scent of burning debris. The alien warship loomed above, its ominous presence a constant reminder of the devastation that had only just begun. But even in the face of such overwhelming destruction, a flicker of hope began to emerge. G-Saviour and Superman stood side by side amidst the wreckage, the weight of their task pressing down on them. The chaos that had erupted from the rift was unlike anything either of them had experienced. The alien forces were relentless, and despite their best efforts, the warship remained unscathed. "We're not getting anywhere," G-Saviour said, his voice tight with frustration as he adjusted his suit. The energy levels were dangerously low, and his once unstoppable power was starting to fade. Superman, hovering beside him, scanned the sky. "We're not alone in this. We need backup." Just as the words left his mouth, the sky above them seemed to crackle with energy. A flash of lightning split the dark clouds, and the thunderous sound of Mjolnir's hammer striking the ground echoed across the battlefield. Thor descended from the heavens, landing with a mighty crash that sent tremors through the ruins. "Fear not, friends," Thor said with a grin, his eyes gleaming with thunderous energy. "Where there is battle, you will always find me." G-Saviour turned to face Thor, his brow furrowed in surprise. "I didn't expect you to come, Thor. Did you think you could face such a powerful enemy without me?" Thor chuckled, raising Mjolnir high, lightning crackling around his form. "I've fought worse. Let us unite and smite this foe." The arrival of Thor was exactly what the team needed. The god of thunder's power was immense, and his hammer had the ability to break through even the toughest defenses. The moment he joined the fray, the tide of the battle began to shift. The alien warship loomed overhead, its shields still holding strong despite the combined efforts of Superman and G-Saviour. But Thor's presence injected new energy into the team. With a battle cry, Thor hurled Mjolnir at the ship, the hammer glowing with magical energy. The ship's shields flickered under the blow, but it wasn't enough to bring it down. "We need a coordinated strike," Superman said, his eyes glowing with intensity. "Thor, take the upper decks." G-Saviour, you target their energy core. G-Saviour nodded, his suit pulsing with power as he launched himself into the air, the thrusters on his back kicking into full gear. The city below him blurred as he ascended, aiming for the warship's exposed power core. His suit's AI scanned the ship's architecture, calculating the best trajectory for his next strike. But as he reached the warship, something unexpected happened. The rift in the sky pulsed again, and a new wave of alien ships appeared from the opening, more advanced and deadly than before. They surrounded the heroes in an instant, forcing them to divert their attention from the primary target. "We've got company," G-Saviour shouted over the comms as he dodged incoming fire from the smaller alien ships. He engaged his suit's weapons, unleashing an energy blast that disintegrated one of the ships in mid-flight. Thor swung Mjolnir, sending arcs of lightning that incinerated the alien ships in a dazzling display of power. "No creature from this dimension will stand in my way." But even with their combined might, the battle wasn't getting any easier. The enemy forces seemed to be multiplying with each passing moment, the warship's energy shield absorbing their blows. "We need to take down that warship now," Superman shouted, his frustration evident as he shot heat vision at the ship's shields. "We can't keep this up forever." G-Saviour zoomed back toward them, his suit now fully charged. "I think I've found a weak point. It's the power core. We need to hit it with everything we've got." The three heroes exchanged a brief, knowing look. They had fought alone, but now, united, they had a chance. "On my mark," Superman said, preparing for the final assault. "We hit it with everything." Thor grinned. "Let the lightning flow through me." The three heroes gathered their strength. G-Saviour charged up his energy core, Thor called down a storm of lightning with Mjolnir, and Superman prepared to unleash his heat vision at full strength. "Now!" Superman yelled, his voice booming with authority. In perfect sync, the three heroes launched their attacks. G-Saviour's energy blast collided with Thor's lightning, amplifying the charge and sending it straight toward the warship's power core. The ship's shields flared brightly, but it wasn't enough. The combined force of the attack pierced the shields, and with a deafening explosion, the core detonated. The warship's energy shield shattered, and the ship began to disintegrate. Alien ships exploded in all directions as the rift began to close, the energy dissipating into the air. The heroes stood victorious, breathing heavily as they watched the remnants of the warship fall to the ground below. The rift in the sky had begun to fade, but the damage was far from over. "We've won for now," G-Saviour said, his voice steady but exhausted. "But we know the enemy won't stop." Thor looked at him, his eyes filled with admiration. "A battle well fought. But this is only the beginning." Superman hovered above, his gaze set on the horizon. "We've saved this city. But there's still a long road ahead. Together, we'll face whatever comes next." As the heroes stood together in the silence of the aftermath, they knew their victory was only temporary. A larger, more dangerous battle was looming, and they would need to remain united if they were to face it. For the first time, the Earth had witnessed the full power of G-Saviour, Superman, and Thor together. And their enemies had learned one thing: when these heroes unite, nothing can stand in their way. With the alien ship destroyed, the heroes think they've won. But the true enemy was never the ship, it was the being pulling the strings behind it all. Now, they must face an enemy more powerful than they ever imagined. The dust from the explosion settled over the city, leaving behind a scene of destruction and a sense of uneasy relief. The warship, the symbol of the alien threat, was no more. The heroes, G-Saviour, Superman, and Thor, stood side by side, watching as the remaining enemy forces fled back through the rift, which now flickered weakly in the sky. We did it, G-Saviour said, his voice filled with relief. His energy levels were dangerously low, but he had never felt more alive. The rift was closing, and the city, his city, was finally safe. Superman landed beside him, wiping the sweat from his brow. For now. But something doesn't feel right. This wasn't just a random invasion. The rift, it's not a natural phenomenon. Someone made this happen. Thor's voice was gruff, but full of purpose. The power behind this invasion feels ancient, like something that cannot simply be destroyed. Whoever controls this rift is far more dangerous than anything we've faced today. The heroes exchanged uneasy glances. Superman had been right. The alien warship was only one piece of the puzzle. The true enemy, the one who had orchestrated the chaos from the shadows, was still out there. As they stood in the heart of the destroyed city, a low, rumbling voice echoed from the sky. "You think you've won?" The voice was chilling, resonating through the air like a deep growl. It wasn't coming from anywhere around them, it came from the rift itself. The rift began to pulse with energy again, brighter than before. It wasn't just closing, it was expanding. The sky above them darkened once more, and an ominous figure appeared in the center of the rift. A tall, dark silhouette descended slowly, the figure wrapped in a cloak of shadow, his presence overwhelming. His eyes glowed with a faint purple light as he floated effortlessly toward the heroes, his mere presence distorting the air around him. "You've destroyed my fleet, heroes. But you've only angered me," the figure said, his voice smooth yet menacing. The energy from the rift crackled with each word, making the atmosphere feel thick and charged with power. The heroes stood frozen for a moment, trying to process what they were witnessing. This wasn't just another enemy from space. This was something far worse, a being who had control over the rift itself. "My name is Kale," the figure continued, his smile twisted with malice. "I am the one who has been pulling the strings behind your little invasion. I've been watching your world for a long time, and I've seen your greatest heroes. Superman, Thor, G-Saviour, all of you are weak. Who are you?" Superman demanded, stepping forward, his fists clenched, his heat vision flaring with intensity. "What do you want?" Kale chuckled softly, his laughter low and cold. "What do I want? I want to reshape this world. I've spent centuries gathering power from every dimension. I've opened the rift to unleash the forces I've been controlling. You see, I didn't just send my army to invade Earth. I needed your worlds to merge, to combine, so that I could reshape them into my perfect universe." The ground beneath their feet began to quake once more. Kale raised his arms, and the rift pulsed, sending shockwaves through the air. The very fabric of reality seemed to bend as he spoke. "What you just fought was only the beginning. The merging of dimensions is already in motion. The rift is growing stronger by the minute. Soon, this reality will be torn apart, and I will reign over all worlds." G-Saviour clenched his fists, his suit flashing with energy. "You're insane. We'll stop you, Kale. Whatever you're planning, we're going to stop it." Kale's eyes flickered with amusement. "You think you can defeat me? You're only human, you've never faced a force like mine." Before G-Saviour or Superman could react, Kale snapped his fingers. The ground beneath them erupted in a violent explosion, sending the heroes tumbling backward. Thor was the first to recover, summoning Mjolnir with a blast of lightning that illuminated the darkened sky. But Kale merely raised a hand, and the lightning was absorbed into an invisible force field, deflected effortlessly. "No weapon, no power can harm me," Kale declared. "I am the architect of the rift. I control its flow, and I control the fate of all worlds." Superman flew forward with incredible speed, trying to land a blow on Kale, but the villain merely flicked his wrist, sending Superman crashing into a nearby building with an unseen force. The power that Kale wielded was beyond anything they had ever encountered. "This is just the beginning," Kale said, his voice echoing through the city as his form loomed over them. "You've brought me the perfect foundation to reshape the multiverse. Soon, I will be the ruler of every reality." G-Saviour struggled to his feet, his energy levels dangerously low, but his will remained unbroken. "We won't let you do this. We'll stop you." Kale's eyes glinted with dark amusement. "You are welcome to try. But it will be your final mistake." With that, Kale raised both hands, and the rift pulsed once more, sending out a shockwave of destructive energy that shattered the ground beneath the hero's feet. The sky opened up wider, and alien ships began to pour out, stronger and more advanced than the first wave. The invasion wasn't over, it was just beginning. In a final showdown that will determine the fate of the universe, the heroes face off against Kale, whose power knows no bounds. To win, they must do what no hero has done before: unite the full force of their abilities and take down the greatest threat they've ever faced. The air crackled with tension as G-Saviour, Superman, and Thor stood together, staring at Kale, the master of the rift, the architect of their world's impending destruction. His cold, glowing eyes pierced through them, filled with dark amusement as he hovered in mid-air, his hands raised, channeling the destructive energy of the rift. The ground trembled beneath their feet, and the sky above was a swirling vortex of chaos. "I've waited centuries for this moment," Kale said, his voice echoing like a thunderclap. "The rift was always my path to power, and now, I will rule over every reality. You were foolish to think you could stop me." G-Saviour stood tall, despite the fatigue weighing heavily on his suit. His energy levels were critically low, but his resolve remained unbroken. "You're wrong, Kale. You may control the rift, but you don't control us. We're not just fighting for this world, we're fighting for all of them." Superman, still recovering from Kale's earlier strike, floated up beside G-Saviour. His blue suit gleamed under the pulsing light of the rift. "This ends now, Kale. Whatever you've done to this world, we will undo it." Thor, his eyes glowing with the fury of the gods, raised Mjolnir. "By Odin's beard, you will not have your way with the realms. I will strike you down where you stand." Kale's laugh rang out, hollow and cruel. "You are all so certain of victory, but you don't understand. The rift is already too powerful. Your combined might will never be enough to close it. I am beyond your reach." With a flick of his wrist, Kale sent a surge of dark energy flying toward the heroes. The shockwave ripped through the city, disintegrating everything in its path. G-Saviour barely managed to raise a shield in time, the blast sending him crashing backward, his suit flickering with warning signs. Superman was hit head-on, his body flying through the air like a bullet, slamming into the wreckage of a building. Thor, however, stood firm, summoning the full power of Mjolnir. The hammer crackled with lightning, and he hurled it toward Kale, but the villain effortlessly absorbed the energy. "You are nothing compared to me," Kale snarled, raising his hands again as the rift pulsed brighter. Dark tendrils of energy shot from the rift, encircling the heroes, holding them in place. "I am the rift, and I control reality itself." As Kale's grip tightened, G-Saviour pushed against the energy, struggling to move. His suit was barely functioning, but he managed to activate a fail-safe protocol. A surge of power shot through his body, and his suit flared with new energy. He broke free from the dark tendrils just as Superman flew back into the fight, his fists glowing with intense heat vision. The combined force of Superman's strength and G-Saviour's technology created a powerful shockwave, temporarily destabilizing Kale's hold. Thor wasn't far behind. With a mighty roar, he swung Mjolnir again, this time channeling the full power of the storm into a single, concentrated blast. The bolt of lightning collided with Kale's energy field, creating a deafening explosion of sound and light. For a moment, it seemed like Kale might falter. His energy shield flickered, and the rift seemed to waver. But Kale grinned, his eyes burning brighter than ever. "You truly believe you can stop me with your limited strength?" The ground cracked open beneath them, and an army of dark, shadowy figures poured from the rift. They were Kale's creations, beings of pure dark energy, twisted and warped by the rift's power. They descended on the heroes in waves, each more vicious than the last. The battle intensified as G-Saviour, Superman, and Thor fought back with all their might. But even together, they were struggling. For every blow they landed, more enemies appeared, more dark energy surged toward Kale. The rift seemed endless. "We need to close the rift," Superman grunted, his breath coming in ragged gasps. But how? G-Saviour's mind raced. The rift's energy is coming from Kale. He's the source of its power. If we can destroy him, we can shut it down. Thor's voice boomed with determination. "Then we take him down, together." The three heroes nodded in agreement. They knew what had to be done, and this time, they would do it right. The key to defeating Kale lay in their combined strength and focus. They would use everything they had left, everything they could muster. G-Saviour turned to Superman and Thor, his eyes filled with resolve. "On my signal, we attack together." The heroes synchronized their movements, readying for their final assault. Superman flew high into the air, gathering energy for his heat vision. Thor summoned the storm once more, Mjolnir crackling with raw lightning. G-Saviour activated every available function of his suit, charging it with the last reserves of energy. With a battle cry, G-Saviour shouted, "Now!" In a blur of synchronized power, Superman fired his heat vision at Kale, the concentrated beams of energy cutting through the air. Thor hurled Mjolnir with a mighty swing, lightning crashing all around the villain. G-Saviour released the full force of his suit's energy core, sending an amplified blast of concentrated energy straight toward Kale. The combined assault hit Kale with unimaginable force, pushing him back. His dark energy field sputtered and flickered, unable to withstand the combined might of the heroes. Kale's eyes widened in shock as his grip on the rift began to loosen. The rift itself shrank, and the dark energy began to dissipate. "No! No!" Kale screamed, his voice filled with rage. "You can't." But it was too late. The rift collapsed in on itself, and Kale's form shattered, the energy dispersing into the air. The rift closed, and the sky began to clear. The city, though battered and broken, was safe. The heroes stood together, breathing heavily but victorious. They had closed the rift and destroyed Kale, but the battle had taken its toll. Superman hovered next to G-Saviour, who was still catching his breath. "We did it," G-Saviour said, his voice weak but triumphant. "We stopped him." Thor smiled, though his expression was solemn. "Aye, but we did it together. And together, we are unstoppable." As the heroes looked toward the horizon, they knew that though the battle for reality had been won, there would always be another challenge waiting. But for now, they had secured peace, and they had proven that when united, even the greatest threats could be overcome. With Kale defeated and the universe saved, the heroes reflect on their victory. But the scars of the battle remain, and the legacy of their alliance will echo through the multiverse forever. The aftermath of the battle felt surreal. The rift had been closed, the alien forces had been driven back, and Kale, once a godlike figure of unimaginable power, was nothing more than a fading echo in the wind. The city, though battered and scarred, was slowly beginning to heal. Buildings that had once been shattered were now being reconstructed, the streets cleared of debris. The skies, once darkened by the rift, were clear again, bathed in the warm glow of the sun. But beneath the surface of this newfound peace, the heroes knew that their victory had come at a heavy cost. They had saved the world, but the battle had left its mark. G-Saviour, standing on the edge of a skyscraper, watched the city below. His suit, now stripped of its power core, flickered weakly in the sunlight. The energy reserves were gone, and the once imposing armor felt heavy on his shoulders. His mind wandered back to the moments before the final blow. The power he had felt when he joined forces with Superman and Thor had been unmatched. But now, without the rift's energy to fuel him, he was left with the weight of a battle that had nearly torn the fabric of reality itself. Beside him, Superman hovered, his cape gently flowing in the breeze. "We did it. We stopped Kale and sealed the rift," he said, his voice calm but tinged with exhaustion. "But this war has changed everything." G-Saviour nodded. "Yeah. I don't think anything will ever be the same. The rift was only the beginning. Kale was just one piece of a much larger puzzle." Superman turned to him. "You've come a long way, G-Saviour. When I first met you, I didn't know if you were ready for this. But you've proven yourself. Not just to me, but to everyone." G-Saviour gave a small, almost sheepish smile. "I didn't do it alone. I had a little help from you and Thor. I couldn't have stopped Kale without both of you." The two heroes shared a brief moment of quiet camaraderie. They had fought side by side, their differences momentarily forgotten in the face of a common enemy. But deep down, they both knew that the world was changing. There would be more threats, more battles. And they would need each other to face what was coming. Thor arrived with a thunderous crash, his voice booming as he landed beside the two heroes. "The city is safe, and the rift is sealed. But the winds of fate tell me that more battles are on the horizon. The future is uncertain, but together, we shall face it." He clasped G-Saviour on the back, sending him stumbling forward with a hearty laugh. "You fought well, young hero. Your courage is as mighty as any god's." G-Saviour grinned, feeling the weight of Thor's praise. "Thanks. I couldn't have done it without you guys." Superman crossed his arms, looking out at the city. "I think we've earned a moment of rest. But the world is still full of dangers we can't even imagine." Thor raised an eyebrow. "Rest? I'll never turn down a feast. But the battle will always call to us, no matter where we go. We are bound by fate." G-Saviour nodded, understanding the weight of Thor's words. He had come a long way from the uncertain hero he once was. In the fight against Kale, he had found his true purpose, not just as a warrior, but as a part of something much larger. He was no longer just a man in a suit, he was a hero in his own right, standing alongside two of the greatest champions the universe had ever known. The sun began to set over the city, casting long shadows across the skyline. As the heroes stood together, watching the fading light, they knew that their journey was far from over. The rift had been sealed, but the world was still a dangerous place, and new threats would inevitably arise. But for now, they had won. And their victory, while hard-earned, was a reminder that when the strongest heroes unite, there is no force in the universe powerful enough to break them. As the night began to fall, the three heroes turned away from the city and walked off together, ready to face whatever challenges awaited them. They had proven that together, there was nothing they couldn't accomplish. They were more than just individuals, they were a team, a symbol of hope for all worlds. And their legacy would echo through the ages, remembered not just for their strength, but for their unwavering unity. For as long as there was darkness, there would always be light. And that light would shine through the strength of the heroes who had saved it all.